What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Criterion Corner. This is a segment on my channel where I watch a film in the Criterion collection or streaming on the Criterion channel, and I talk about it in great detail. And today I am very excited because I'm talking about a director who I absolutely adore, and that is the director John Waters. And I'm going to be discussing his film Polyester today, which I'm very excited about because I've never seen this movie before. It was my first time watching it. I look forward to telling you a little bit about it today. Polyester is directed by John Waters. A suburban housewife's world falls apart when her pornographer husband admits he's serially unfaithful to her. Her daughter gets pregnant, and her son is suspected of being the foot fetishist who's been breaking local women's feet. So, I didn't know anything about this movie before I watched it other than it starred Divine, who I absolutely love. It's directed by John Waters, so I'm assuming I'm getting into something absolutely insane. And my assumptions were correct. This movie was wonderful. I loved everything about it. It's 100% catered to my tastes for certain. I had so much fun watching this movie, and it's all about my respect for John Waters as a filmmaker, because one of the things I love about John, and I've talked about this previously in a video, but John, being a queer person in this time period, clearly dealt with a lot of scrutiny, and especially in the 70s where, you know, gay culture existed, but it was viewed in even more of a demeaning and awful manner than it is now. And just existing as a gay person in that time period had to be difficult. And I love that John's movies are so much of like a big middle finger to conservative culture as to like, hey, if you want to see us as despicable or disgusting, we're going to give it right back to you, and we're going to do it in droves. And I think his movies, existing for that reason, are so interesting. And aside from just existing in that type of space, they're truly hilarious. They're very over the top and silly and fun, and this movie hits all those hallmarks. I would say in the catalog of his films that I've seen previously, this lines up pretty close to Serial Mom in the way that it's structured and the way that the punchlines of the jokes are delivered. So in Polyester, we're introduced to Divine's character Francine, and she lives at home with her husband, who runs a porn theater, who is constantly being scrutinized by the community, and there's protests being held outside of their house nonstop, and she just wants to live her life. She says, "I'm a good Christian woman." It's absolutely hilarious. And so she has her husband, and then she has her two kids, who she has a daughter who's like constantly sneaking out. She's getting horrible grades in school. And she has her son, who in the description says is going around and crushing women's feet at grocery stores and stuff, just hitting them until he breaks their feet. And so you have this weird family dynamic, and early on in the film we see that her husband is having an affair, and everything in her life is completely falling apart. Her mother's constantly coming over and asking for money, and it seems like whatever she does, she can't get out of her rut. And at the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to her friend Cuddles, played by Edith Massey, who I love. Edith Massey, she's one of the strongest parts of this movie. She's absolutely hilarious. And they're having a conversation. Divine has this amazing line where she's like, "My life is like an endless highway with endless toll booths and no exits." Just this amazing monologue sequence while she's sitting at the table with Edith Massey. And most of the film is just kind of watching her life fall apart around her, and then trying to take it back and to do the things that she wants with her life. And it's a really hilarious experience. I know a lot of people have said this about this movie, but it's very much a mockery of soap operas, just the elevated drama and the absurd things that they choose to convey in the movie, which is a lot of John Waters' humor. There are so many moments in this movie that just had me laughing so hard I couldn't breathe, which is something I appreciate with John, is that his movies do that often. The whole gimmick behind this film when it was released is that it had like smell-o-vision, where it's like a scratch and sniff card. And when I watched it in this viewing experience, unfortunately I don't have a physical Criterion copy of the movie, which I've heard comes with the scratch and sniff card. I will be getting that soon. The big thing was you go to the theater and watch this, and these numbers would pop up on screen and you would sniff at the same time, which absolutely hilarious. I love that idea. I think it's ridiculous. It's over the top. Very John Waters in a nutshell. But the movie, aside from just being like a mockery of soap operas, is very much in the realm of Serial Mom, in that it's critiquing conservative culture in a way that is so hilarious. And I said this in my Letterboxd review, but I think it really is pertinent to all of John's films, is there's moments where you'll have a line of dialogue that feels like a comedic punch, and it works really well. But aside from being a great comedic punch, it also makes you think. And there's multiple moments in this movie where there'll be a line delivered that it like says something that's funny in the context of the scene, but when you think about it in the larger scale of how our society is structured, it's really thoughtful. And I think that's what makes John such a talented director, is that nothing he's doing is just like shock value. I know so many people talk about Pink Flamingos, and that movie has a lot of stuff in it that's for sheer shock value, which I understand, but I also don't think that a lot of general audiences give John the credit for how intelligent of a filmmaker that he is, and how much time and effort and energy goes into crafting the humor in his films. And I love how Polyester is relentless. Like, every scene you're watching is just comedic bit after comedic bit after comedic bit, but there's enough room to breathe that it doesn't feel like it's ever laying it on too heavy. It's paced really well, and I know there's a lot of people online that when they complain about this movie, they complain that the narrative structure is thin, but I don't think you really need much more than what's given to you in this movie. Once you're given the core familial structure and then the side characters are introduced, it's more just about being along for the ride and appreciating the humor in it, whether it be subtle or whether it be really over the top. I love how John uses a lot of regulars, like I said, Edith Massey, Mink Stole, who I think is absolutely hilarious in every one of his films where she's shown up. Her delivery is so great. Like, she's just such an absurd actor that just does a phenomenal job. And obviously I said it at the beginning of the video, Divine is a personal hero of mine. I think Divine is everything you can want from a performer, like from top to bottom. Just everything that she does in any movie that she's in is so incredibly impressive. This movie, her monologue sequences are really phenomenally well acted. Every single one, just her delivery, her commitment, her facial expressions, the way she moves her body. She's just such a performer, a born performer, that every time she shows up in any one of John's projects, I'm just enamored to the screen because of how talented she was when she was here. And she steals the show in this movie 100%. Her and Edith Massey's chemistry is phenomenal. Edith Massey, I always think of her in Pink Flamingos, but in this role, she's really fantastic and she's fun. Her relationship with her driver is really great. I just love the way that their chemistry works. John has some very extreme moments in this movie, like most of his films, where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe he got away with that. But that's what he was known for in his entire career, and I appreciate his level of ridiculousness. And this movie is just a lot of fun. I think if you're a fan of John, you're obviously really going to enjoy this movie. But if you're a fan of absurdist comedy, this is the way to do it. I mean, absurdist comedy, it takes a very specific type of talent to be able to pull it off. And I think John understands the world enough that when he picks it apart and critiques it, that he makes something really special. And I'm very glad I got to watch this movie. I still haven't seen a lot of films in John's catalog, and I'm very much excited to watch more because I think he's an incredibly talented filmmaker, and every movie I've watched from him so far, I've loved. So have you seen Polyester? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to watch more in John's catalog. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.